Countryside. Dear, can you do something? Connor, are you going to connect to the bridge like you did to the tunnel?
No done, baby? No. Okay. Okay.
There we go. Hi, Gwen. This is Caroline, the clerk of the board. We'll be getting started momentarily. We're waiting for the directors to come. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Good evening, and let's call the board meeting for the March 27th Open Space Authority to order. Need to call roll.
Director Kennett, not present. Director Chapman,
I'm very present.
Director Sutherland, not present. Director Alexander,
Present.
Director Potter,
Here.
Director Gill.
Here.
Uniform. Okay, all right. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the board, any matter not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment?
If any members of the public joining us via Zoom would like to comment on any item not on the agenda, you can raise your hand and do so now.
Madam Chair, I do believe we have a member of the public who wanted to address the board.
My name's Larry Zerb.
Come on up. Come on up. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Larry Zerbrick. I'm the president of the San Jose Astronomical Association. And I thought I'd come and see what an OSA board meeting's all about. I'm here with one of my other compadres from the SJAA. Rich.
Hello, my name is Rich Greger. I am also with the San Jose Astronomical Association. I manage the equipment donation program. And I guess on an interim basis, I'm also the volunteer coordinator with our volunteers. And I'm also a trained OSA astro docent for you folks. So we
Oh.
decided to just come down and
I also forgot to mention that I'm a trained OSA astro docent also. So anyway.
Thank you for coming.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, so there's no speakers on Zoom. Okay, any other public comments? Okay. All right. So we'll move on. Announcement regarding the items to be discussed in closed session. We have moved prior to the closed session.
Good evening, Madam Chair. There are 2 items in closed session, both concern existing litigation, Congress General Counsel, the details of which are on the agenda.
Okay. All right. With that, we will adjourn to closed session. Right.
Hello, for those of you joining us via Zoom, this is Caroline, clerk of the board. The board members just convened to close session. Hopefully it shouldn't take more than about, hopefully they'll be back by 7 o'clock. So just please hang tight and we'll get started shortly. Thank you.
Okay, we are back. Is there a report from closed session?
No report, Madam Chair, but we're gonna return back to closed session for the second reading, that is session. Once we finish.
Once we conclude.
business, you know.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from February 27th.
Vote to approve. Second.
We have a motion from Director Kenneth with a second by Director Gill to approve the February 27th, 2025 meeting minutes.
Director Kenneth,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Potter,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously. And now we are on to approval of the consent item. Does anybody wish to speak on the consent calendar? Or does anybody wish to pull an item from the consent calendar? Anybody?
I'd move to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion to approve consent items 1 through 3, moved by Director Alexander with a second by Director Kenneth.
Director Kenneth,
Yes.
Director Chapman.
Yeah.
Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Potter,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously. All right. So, under new business. Welcome, everybody. So our new business persona is to honor the life and service of Open Space Director to Mike Walker. Carolyn, did you want to present this?
Actually, I will hand it over to our General Manager, Andrew McKenzie.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, directors. It's my great honor this evening to begin this board item in honor of District 2 Director Mike Flaher. I want to thank staff for putting this amazing slideshow together of contributions that Mike made to the Open Space Authority. And if it's okay with the board, I'd like to read into the record the resolution that's before your board this evening honoring the life and service of Open Space Authority District 2 Director Mike Flaher. Whereas Director Mike Flaher began his service to the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority as the District 2 representative to the Citizens Advisory Committee in 2014, and was then appointed to the Board of Directors in 2015 upon the retirement of Director Jim Ferran. And whereas Mike Flaher was a dedicated champion of parks, trails, and open space until his passing on February 22nd, 2025. And whereas Mike Flaher has been a resident of Berryessa neighborhood in San Jose since 1986, he developed his love and appreciation for nature during his childhood growing up in a small town in Indiana. And whereas his passion for nature and access to its healing qualities led him to begin his advocacy in the community as a volunteer with the Santa Clara County Parks and Recreation Department, tackling issues in Penitencia Creek Park and Trail, and then as a commissioner to the San Jose Parks Commission, where he served for 6 years. And whereas Mike Flaher was active on the Bay Area Ridge Trail Council Board of Directors for over 12 years, from 2007 to 2020, chairing the Santa Clara County Committee, establishing himself as a great ambassador for the Ridge Trail. And whereas Mike Flaher would spend his 4th of Julys with authority staff at Sierra Vista to ensure a safe and peaceful evening, while conveying to them stories and anecdotes from his life, including his family, his time in the United States Air Force, and his love and respect for the Berryessa community. And whereas authority staff will always think of Mike Flaher and his warm demeanor on July 4th at Sierra Vista. And whereas Mike Flaher was often sharing videos and pictures of his grandchildren before or after a board meeting with such pride and fondness, even if they were the horror stories of toddlerhood. And whereas Mike Flaher is remembered as a kind, positive, and caring man, who was a father figure of the community, possessing the skills and patience to assist with fixing problems. Mike lives on in the spirit he transferred to those communities and in the open and natural spaces that he helped to protect. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the board hereby approves this resolution honoring the life and service of District 2 Director Mike Flaher. Be it further resolved that the general manager is hereby authorized and directed on behalf of the authority and in its name to execute and deliver such documents and to do such acts as may be deemed necessary or appropriate to accomplish the intentions of the above resolution. Passed, approved, and adopted on March 27th by the vote of the Board of Directors. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I just want to share April and Mike's family. I got to serve with Mike twice. Once as a park commissioner, and we caused a lot of good trouble. And April, I thoroughly enjoyed that. He and I were big schemers together. We developed that volunteer position because of his work with the county. We got the park fees raised. We stood up before city council, and we did a lot of good. He's a very good man. I was really honored to serve with him. And again, when I joined the board here, welcomed me back onto the board, and so kind of full circle. We, spent a lot of time, a lot of parks and trails. I know how much he did. I know how much he loved his family. He talked about you all the time. I'm glad you're here tonight. Just want to ask any board members if they want to share anything, and then we'll ask. And I think we have Mayor Lapidus here, and I see we have one.
Have a commendation.
Yes, we'll do the board first, and then we'll.
Actually, I work with Mike Flaher almost 10 years, maybe more than 10 years. Liaison, CSE when he was the CSE members, then appointed board members. And there are a lot of things we just work together and achieve many goals together. I can only say that we really miss his guidance, his leadership and knowledge, not only Open Space Authority, mainly the whole communities. And lastly, I can say, rest in peace, Mike.
Great picture. Thank you so much for sharing, Mike, with us and with the community. I think we would not have had much choice in it, to be honest, because the one thing he liked talking about, besides talking about you all, was did you know that the Ridge Trail connects BART to all kinds of other things, the Penitentiary Creek, and I just the legacy of that activism and work is just phenomenal. I really valued working with him, and his memory will be a blessing, and our community will benefit from his hard work. And you're sharing him with us for many, many years.
I'm one of the newer board members, and Mike was always so welcoming and helpful. And as I got to know him, I realized what a wonderful man he was and how involved with his community and with his family, and how he had been doing good things for many years for the community as a whole, but specifically for parks and open spaces in the Bay Area Ridge Trail. And we will miss him a lot.
I'm gonna miss the conversations I had offline with Mike. We would always do such a good listen. Oh, silly idea. Mull it over, give me feedback, always come back to something that I didn't think of. Occasionally I get a call from him, the same another silly idea of his, and we go back and forth a couple of times. times, but I'm just saying, we did that a lot. 10 years for it. And Social Security is, well, trains, you know. Never came out to see our railroad, but maybe he's watching it now. So, and I miss him from this corner. I feel very lonely. Know as well as I do. He's had more virtues than people. I really will miss him.
Anybody, do we want to do him first or? And then we can.
If any of the guests joining us via Zoom would like to comment, please raise your hand and I will call your name. Janet McBride.
Thanks. The old fashioned way of raising my hand. Well, first of all, I want to thank OSA for organizing this tribute. I can't see, but if Mike's family is there, I also want to thank his family for sharing Mike with us as well. And I just want to add my voice to those honoring Mike. Mike was just a very active member of the Ridge Trail Board of Directors for over a dozen years, and he chaired our Santa Clara County Committee. He was one of truly our greatest ambassadors, and he was a great connector. He always worked to create bridges between neighborhoods and the business community and elected leaders and other advocates. And he just always helped get the word out about especially about, lesser known parks and trails and treasures. And, I don't think there was a Ridge Trail event, meeting, or trail dedication in the South Bay over the last 15 years that Mike wasn't a part of. He was almost always there, sporting a Ridge Trail t-shirt and hat. And we will really miss him and think about him often, and think about him as we continue to work and honor his legacy in that way. So again, appreciation from everyone at the Ridge Trail Council.
Dorsey Moore.
Yeah, thanks. Mike was a gentleman. I miss his corny jokes and just really appreciated his even-keeled demeanor. And no matter what was going on, I just feel like he always had a level head. And that's something that I aspired to be or to have. And, just with my backdrop here being in his district, basically off Sierra Vista, just in his honor. And then just, I'm never on Penitentiary Creek Trail and not thinking about his contributions to that trail in particular, and him just as a trail guy. And I'm a trail guy too. And so really connected with him on that passion. Definitely he was a double agent, I feel like, with the Bay Area Ridge Trail and OSA. So, but one of the good double agents for sure. So I will certainly miss him. Thanks for the great work in honoring his contributions to the board and staff. Thank you.
Point, when wish to address the board, you can come forward.
Good evening, everyone, board. My name is Carmen Montano, the mayor for the city of Milpitas. I was on the Open Space Authority as a community liaison when Open Space Authority first opened, when Garnetta and I and Virginia and a bunch of us, and Jim Ferran was he was our representative at that time. But I want to, people that serve and want to make Open Space Authority with nature, for people to enjoy nature, they have a passion. And I remember Mike had that passion. So I have a commendation to give to the family. I'd like to read it and then give it to you. So I have to put my glasses on now because I'm getting older. So, Okay, so the city of Milpitas presents this commendation to Mike Flogger in memoriam. On behalf of the Milpitas City Council, I, Mayor Carmen Montano, am honored to posthumously commend Mike Flogger on Thursday, March 27, 2025, for a lifetime of service, kindness, and unwavering dedication to his community. A proud U.S. Air Force veteran, Mike served his country for 15 years before continuing his legacy of service in the tech industry and as a devoted leader in the Santa Clara County Open Space Authority, Bay Area Ridge Trail Council, and Berryessa Citizens Advisory Council. He was a tireless advocate for parks, public service, and the people of San Jose, always working to bring others together and create a more connected and vibrant community. Mike's love for nature, service, and his fellow neighbors was evident in everything he did. His kindness, leadership, and deep commitment to others will profoundly be missed, but his impact will live on in the trails he helped to protect, the community he strengthened, and the countless lives he touched. So presented on this 27th day of March, Mayor Carmen Montano and the city of Milpitas. Thank you so much.
Anyone, a few words? Arnett, looking at you.
I feel I'm not healed from my fall. Well, it's wonderful to have April and his daughter, and is it son or son?
My fiance.
My fiance here tonight, because I know that that you, April in particular, probably had to live 24 hours of his talking about all the different issues that were important to him. And so your patience was part of the strength that he had, and he brought and he shared with all of us. And so I want to thank you for everything that you've done to help him show up and be just a really critical part. I wasn't on the board the majority of whenever he served, but I was involved in the Berryessa Citizens Advisory Committee because my first home was over there, Penitentiary Creek and the Bay Area Ridge Trail. And it just was wonderful to have someone like him step forward, as if we can't always find the best people to actually come out and spend the time it takes. Thank you for supporting him. Thank you. Martin.
Well, my name is Margie Matthews, and I had a very special relationship and intersection with Mike because about 10 years ago, I was reappointed to the San Jose City Council after having been away for 20 years, and I needed someone to help me. And everyone that I consulted said one name, Mike Flogger is your guy. And he certainly was, because he knew the district, he knew the neighborhoods, and he had a passion for open space and trails as I did. And he was fabulous. He was the adult in the council office at that time. And he was not only passionate about open space, but also a teacher. And I have two interesting memories of him. One is that he helped you with your mother, I believe, who was toward the end of her life. And he was just a devoted son-in-law and helped her emotionally, physically, medically, in every way possible. So that impressed me. The other one was that one day he said, we're going to take a walk, you and I. We're going to hike the Penitencia Creek Trail. And so get your tennis shoes on. So I did. I got my tennis shoes on, and he came to my house. So happened I lived on one end of Penitencia Creek and he lived on the other end. And we walked from Alum Rock Park all the way down to the BART station. And he educated and taught me and pointed things out the entire way. And I've never forgotten that trip. And every time I walk that trail, I point out things that he pointed out to me, including the Stonehenge on Penitencia Creek and his dream of the connection of the Ridge Trail to the Bay Trail, which I had not realized. So I wanted to express my gratitude to him and to you and to your family. And I remember you all from that time. So my best wishes to everybody and to the board.
Good evening. My name is Paul Billick. I'm a 23-year volunteer with the Open Space Authority and over 30-year volunteer in Berry Ridge Trail. My dealings with Mike was mainly with the Ridge Trail, not too often with OSA, but there is one time where there was an overlap in that the Ridge Trail, to honor its major donors, often do hikes for them on areas not yet open to the public. And a few years ago, we planned to hike the whole ridge top of what would become Coyote Ridge, just Coyote Ridge then, from the Metcalf Canyon, or the Metcalf Motorcycle Park, all the way through to the boundary, which we always called the lunch spot, 3.5 miles and back. And so I was going to lead that. And so I came early because I knew I had to unlock the gate, that parking lot we were going to use. But I went and touched base with the rangers, and the ranger there said, no, you don't have permission to hike up there. And I said, oh, yes, we do. And he said, no, you don't. And he says, the guy was here earlier and I sent him down to Malik. I said, no, we have permission. And then another ranger up there said, oh, yes, they do have permission. And he showed the form. And he goes, ugh. So he took me back there and said, okay, this is where you're going to be. I said, okay, but somebody came early and you sent him down. And says, okay, I'm worried about him later. I got to open the gate. And so people start showing up, and then Mike shows up, and I said, how's it going? He says, yeah, when I got here, the ranger sent me down to Malik. And then down there, the people down there told me, come back up here. And of course, the thought that goes through my mind, you not only sit down the board of directors for the Ridge Trail, but someone who was the board of directors of OSA. Boy, that's 2 strikes against that ranger. But Mike being Mike, it was like, yeah, no big deal. Just went down, drove all the way down this hill, come all the way back up again. And we had a great hike, and it was a great time. It was always fun to hiking with Mike, and I'm definitely going to miss those times. Thank you.
Staff, would you like to bring forward the resolution? The chair? And the photo, thanks. So staff is presenting a framed resolution honoring Mike Flogger and a framed photo of Sierra Vista and the headwaters of Penitencia Creek.
A small break. Ready to smile. Stretch your legs. Go over, turn about.
Before you guys break, do you mind? I just want to say that.
Come on.
So, I can speak. Yeah. Yeah. My goodness, I didn't know this by now. Okay. So I am, I am Mike's future son-in-law, and it seemed like every single time that we would go and visit Gwen and Jesus, which is his daughter and his son-in-law that live in Concord. You know, me and him would always sit down and always have like these big, long talks about everything from, our time in the military, because I'm retired Army, and our time in Europe, because of course he was stationed in Europe and England for a bit, where Tara was born, was in England. I spent a lot of time in England as well as in Germany. But we always had like these really long and very interesting talks about everything, like I said, from service to even the stuff that he had experienced with y'all. And he always had something positive to say about you guys, and always positive about what it was to have actually sat on this board. And so I just wanted to thank you guys for everything that you've done. Being there for Mike as a friend, being there for Mike as a colleague, and of course, this presentation. So thank you.
That will take a.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Water is nodding, it's being approved right now. Could you please vote on the resolution?
Oh, that's true. Okay, all right.
Madam
Would you like to make the motion?
Chair, I'd be honored to approve that resolution.
I do the second.
Okay. Pull up the magic. Okay. So we have a motion to honor the life and service of Open Space Authority Director to Mike Lawhurt. We have a motion by Director Kennett and a second by Director Gill.
Director Kenneth,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Alexander. Yes. Director Potter,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. All right, now we'll take a 5-minute break.
I want to get through it.
Back. On to item 2. Depressing. And
We do the consent.
we did. We are, yeah. So we are in item 2.
That was passed.
Yeah.
Passed.
All right, so item number 2 is acknowledging a board member resignation, provide direct to fill vacancy either by special election or appointment. And appoint 3 board members to the ad hoc nominating committee. Not Carolyn will.
I'm gonna stay seated.
Okay.
Good evening, directors. Thank you. It's nice to hear all those touching words and stories about Director Clark. He will be missed. So this item is acknowledging our upcoming board member resignation, asking the board for direction to staff to fill the vacancy, and should the board vote to appoint to fill the vacancy by appointment, appoint a 3-member ad hoc nominating committee.
There are actually two resolution or one?
I will go through it. I will hopefully explain everything clearly. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Okay, so staff recommends the board acknowledge the upcoming resignation of District 6 Director Mike Potter. Direct staff to begin the process of filling the District 2 and District 6 vacancies by special election or by appointment. And should the board choose to fill the vacancies by appointment, staff recommends that the chairperson appoint 3 directors to the ad hoc nominating committee to review applicants and forward a recommended candidate for the District 2 to the board by April 14th, and to meet packet and legal requirement deadlines. So now, having said all that, I will slowly walk the board through the process, and we can take each action one step at a time. The board was notified of the passing of our dear Director Flaher on Sunday, February 23rd, 2025, effectively leaving the District 2 seat vacant. The board has 2 options to fill the vacancy as pursuant to Government Code Section 1780, which states the board may fill a vacancy either by appointment within 60 days of notification of a vacancy or the effective date of a vacancy, whichever is later, or fill the vacancy by calling an election. If the board does not act, a vacancy may then be filled by the County Board of Supervisors. So this slide illustrates the timeline. If the board decides to vote to fill the vacancy by appointment, first, the notice of vacancy will go out tomorrow, March 28th. Qualified candidates would be invited to apply via the application, which a draft of the copy of the application has been handed out to you. The application lists April 9th as the deadline to submit the application. And the applications collected will be included in the next board meeting packet to be published on April 14th. And then the board would vote to appoint a candidate at their regular meeting scheduled for April 24th. While the authority has not received a formal resignation for the District 6 seat, as there is already a vacancy on the board, staff believes it is prudent to prepare for both vacancies to minimize disruption of the authority business. So similarly, once an effective date of vacancy has been established for District 6, a notice of vacancy will be issued along with an application, and the board will be scheduled to vote at the next regular board meeting. The registrar of voters have provided an estimate for holding an all-mail ballot special standalone election. And as you can see, the cost ranges from 2.1 million on the low end to 3.4 million on the high end. And these costs are currently unbudgeted. The cost of holding a special election includes the actual cost of labor, services, supplies, and printing of election materials in the mandated languages. And the final cost of the election is computed after the fact.
So assuming that the board votes to fill the District 2 and the District 6 vacancies by appointment, our board operating rules and procedures state that the chairperson shall appoint a 3-member committee, a nominating committee, to seek and screen applications and recommend qualified candidates. And so the board need only create one nominating committee for both vacancies. And so now I would recommend that the board have a discussion and take public comments. The board can take a vote first to fill District 2 seat, and then vote a second time to fill the District 6 seat. And then given the method of appointment, we can vote for a nominating committee if needed. So now I'll turn the floor over to you, Chair.
I think we saw the cost of the special elections and everybody's eyes went, what? That number seems to be going up immensely every year, so I'm more in favor of doing an ad hoc committee so that we can do,
I'd like to
appointment rather than.
recommend that we do just that, and I'm happy to serve at the pleasure of the board on that committee.
Me too. Because I have experience.
Do, but the board chair has also asked somebody who is not here if she would be on the committee, so. And she did accept some, so sorry, Director Gill, but if she doesn't show up. Yeah. I did reach out to Director Kennett and Director Sutherland, and both indicated that they would be interested in serving on the nominating committee, but with me ask this, with Director Sutherland not here, is there an issue with appointing her in absence? No? Okay, all right, just want to make sure. Okay, but so let's take the discussion of the special election. So let me just take a quick pulse looking around. Does anybody want to move forward with a special election considering the cost? No, okay, all right, so let's toss out special election and we will. Yeah, so as I understand, we're gonna do 3 separate votes, right? Okay, so the first vote.
The first
Go
vote
back
can
to
be
your-
for District 2.
Okay.
Madam Chair, apologize. Just want to make sure, is there any public comment on this
Do we have any,
item?
yes, do we have any public comment on the discussion?
And then the only other point of order I'll point out is that when you vote on the District 6, sorry, I might abstain because under the statute, he can't vote when he's successful. And how? And
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's go back to the slide, so we get the order of the votes as they.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first vote would be to fill the District 2 vacancy by appointment, correct? Okay,
correct.
Also move.
Okay.
I second.
Pardon me while I plug this motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to fill the District 2 vacancy left by Director Flogger by appointment, moved by Director Kennett with a second by Director Alexander.
Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Potter,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. And the next item will be to provide the same direction for District 6, correct?
Correct.
Moving forward with a special election, we would do the same appointment process and the same committee would do both. Okay,
correct.
I'll move.
Second.
Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Potter,
Abstention?
Director Gilbert.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. And the third item would be the
A motion to appoint the three selected directors to the ad hoc nominating committee.
okay, to create the ad hoc nominating committee that would cover both the District 2 seat and the District 6 seat
Correct.
with directors Kennett and Sutherland and Chapman. For a motion?
I make a motion.
Any of us second that motion?
There's a, is the point of order, there's the question whether Director Potter can second the motion. No,
He can't.
he's
Not
out.
any of us, the rest. Any
Yeah,
of
the
us.
committee members that are being appointed.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Second.
We'll make sure. Okay, so we have a motion to set the committee with the following members. Moved by Director Alexander, is there a second? Yes, and a second by Director Kent. Okay. All right. Okay. Got it. So motion to appoint Director Sutherland, Director Kennett, and Director Chapman to the ad hoc nominating committee that would review Director 2 seat and the Director 6 seat. Okay, we got it.
Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Alexander. Yes. Director Potter,
Abstention?
Director Gill.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes.
Thank you, directors.
Okay, Director Potter, do you have anything you want to share with us, or
I,
we feel like we're talking about you and you
well,
can't
if
say
you're about my
anything?
district, I'm not necessarily leaving the open space authority's jurisdiction, just the district I was elected to serve in, so. It's imminent, but not here yet.
Okay.
So this process, the timing is good. I do believe I'll be at the April meeting. And then I'll know more for the May meeting, depending on the completion of construction and then someone else occupying my dwelling,
Okay,
but nobody yet, so.
okay, okay.
But I thought important to sync the timing.
I appreciate that.
when
I appreciate that.
shared that information last week.
Okay. All right. Now,
Hey, Madam Chair,
yes,
I think we're gonna break back into closed session if it's okay with you, because Mr. Schwartz is here now. And he's probably the longest drive of all of us, so if we could reconvene the closed session on the second item on our list. Concerning the Open Space Authority versus Andrade.
okay, all right. So being that, we will convene the whole session. We'll be back. Forum. We just switched directors. Okay. All right, we're back. Is there any reportable action?
No reportable action, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we are on to item 3, which is award of contract to the CMG Landscape Architecture for RFP. Connecting people to Coyote Valley and the HT Harvey Associates for RFP, Coyote Valley Landscape Linkage. Nick Perry. We want good news.
Good news, yes. I think this is good news. Good evening, directors. Nick Perry, Long Range Planning Manager, Coyote Valley Project Director, here tonight to share with you staff's recommendation for the firms that are going to take CV Camp, Coyote Valley Conservation Areas Master Plan, and related projects to the finish line. So without further ado, go through this brief presentation. So as you all know, we have 10 goals or theme areas for our work in Coyote Valley and what we hope to accomplish through CV Camp. And when we hired our first consultant team, we put out an RFP for one large team that would tackle all these goals. And what we decided to do, it's not going. Thank you. With these new RFPs is to, well, we finished our first 2 rounds of CV Camp. We finished the site assessment phase. And now we're hiring these new consultant teams, and we decided to look at those goals and group them into 2 complementary teams. So the Connecting People to Coyote Valley team is really focused on how people use, experience, and move through Coyote Valley. And the Coyote Valley Landscape Linkage team is really focused on ecology, watershed restoration, ecological connectivity. And then there's natural and complementary overlap between these teams when it comes to local agriculture, transportation, and road ecology, and then creating that holistic vision for all of Coyote Valley. So these teams, they're initially going to focus on the CV Camp properties, highlighted here in yellow. This will be set up as a master contract. So we'll be using these teams on an as-needed basis. And then their first, and this will be based on the board-approved fiscal year budget. So we will authorize them kind of in phases. And the first really focused area of work will be the master plan. We also hope to use these teams for detailed design and engineering and implementation of projects that come out of the master plan, as well as related projects in the Coyote Valley area, such as the proposed Monterey Road street design study that we might be working on next fiscal year with the city of San Jose. So I'm going to walk you through this org chart to kind of describe how these 2 teams are going to be structured within the larger CV Camp team. So just to orient you, the blue is the Landscape Linkage team, the green is the Connecting People team, orange is OSA staff, authority staff, and then gray are partners and other outside advisors and experts. So both teams will report to me as the Coyote Valley Project Director, and I convene this interagency team that includes our point persons at Post and the City of San Jose. They'll be working very closely with other OSA staff, particularly Aaron Hebert and the Natural Resources Department, and Jennifer Peth, who will be serving as Assistant Project Manager to CV Camp. In addition to the linkage team, we're going to be supported by our on-call advisors. We have our Cultural and Archaeological Resources Advisor, Albion, our Water Resources and Permitting Advisor, Jim Robbins at Alness Ecological, and our CV Camp Science Advisory Group. We also have an agricultural planning team that really crosses across these 3 teams. We have our agricultural advisor, Sabella Kraus at SAGE. We're going to have grazing and grassland management experts in the linkage team. And the folks in the Connecting People team will help us figure out how to design the agricultural uses and facilities that we need for agriculture in Coyote Valley. And of course, a huge part of the work in CV Camp is community engagement. And that work will really be led by our staff here at OSA, our communications team, our volunteers team, our education team, with support from our communications advisors. So in terms of how we're going to get CV Camp to the finish line, we're currently in phase 3, where we're looking at the restoration scenarios for the CV Camp properties, creating a list of potential agricultural uses and public use and access uses. Once these teams are onboarded, they're going to look at these in-progress deliverables and review them and tell us what they think. And then we're going to move into the next phase of CV Camp, which will start with really solidifying the restoration alternatives and using those as the base map upon which we will lay public use and access and agriculture. So again, the blue here is the linkage team as the lead, the green is the connecting people team as the lead, and the yellow is the agricultural team as the lead. And then the orange stars are major community engagement milestones. And the first major community engagement milestone we're looking towards is early next year, hoping to have holistic conceptual alternatives that kind of show the big picture vision and a few different ways of doing that we'll be sharing with the board by the end of the year, I hope, and then with the public early in 2026. Based on the input we get from the public and from our advisors and stakeholders, we would refine those into a preferred conceptual plan, and that in turn would spur another round of engagement. And then we move into, in 2027, environmental review, and eventually creating the actual plan document itself and bringing it to the board for adoption and approval. Kind of running alongside that, we're focusing really on those CV Camp properties, but we're also doing street design for roads like Santa Teresa and Bailey at the same time. Okay, no more charts. So turning to the RFP itself, the RFP panel consisted of staff from the authority as well as point persons from the city and from the Peninsula Open Space Trust. We posted the RFP on January 17th. We emailed it to over 40 vendors. We had 3 teams respond to the Connecting People RFP and 2 teams respond to the Landscape Linkage RFP. So the team that our panel recommends for the Landscape Linkage Team RFP is a team led by H.T. Harvey and Associates. They would be the prime for this team. They'd be supported by CBEC Ecological Engineering, as well as Pathways for Wildlife and Dr. Anthony or Tony Clevenger. H.T. Harvey has over 30 years experience working in Coyote Valley on the CV Camp properties. In a lot of cases, they bring a lot of institutional knowledge about the work that has been done in the past and the unique features and biological resources of Coyote Valley. So we're very excited to work with them on CV Camp. CBEC was one of the sub-consultants in our prior team, so they actually built the hydrologic model that we're going to be using in future phases of CV Camp. So they'll be able to seamlessly hit the ground running once we bring these folks on board. And Pathways and Dr. Tony Clevenger have a lot of expertise and knowledge about wildlife movement in our area, and particularly in Coyote Valley. So just a few examples of this team's work. H.T. Harvey and CBEC are collaborating on the Pacheco Creek Restoration Project with the Habitat Agency. As I mentioned, CBEC worked on our modeling for CV Camp. And Pathways has done a variety of studies in this area with Dr. Clevenger, including studies looking how to connect wildlife between the Gavilan Range and the Diablo Range and the Santa Cruz Mountains. For the Connecting People team, the panel recommends a team led by CMG Landscape Architecture. CMG would be in charge of the master plan creation itself, landscape architecture, creating that holistic vision. Their key partners are Sherwood Design Engineers, who would serve as the main civil engineer for the project, Farron Pierce, which would serve as a transportation engineer and transportation planning sub-consultant. And they are supported by a supporting team of consultants that will plug in kind of as needed, like California Farm Link, EHDD Architecture, and others, which I won't name all of them, but you see them up there on the screen. So some examples of this team's work, CMG and Farron Pierce collaborated on in-progress reimagining of portions of Crissy Field in San Francisco. So you see the site plan on the bottom, a nice bird blind that they've designed to look out over the marsh up at Crissy Field. CMG and their subs NGO and RMA Irrigation worked on the master plan for a trail network at Yerba Buena Island in the middle of the San Francisco Bay. They're currently working on a new Petaluma River Park in Petaluma that combines public access with habitat restoration on the Petaluma River. Some renderings and sections and 3D model views of that park that's in progress. EHTD, one of their subs, that would be the sub for architecture. Should we decide to build any structures like a farm stand, or we'll see what we come up with in the planning as we go along. They did the youth campus at Tunnel Tops Park in the Presidio of San Francisco, a really great facility for educational interaction and interpretation of nature in the Presidio. And then Sherwood, we're pretty familiar with here. They worked as advisors on the Coyote Valley Landscape Linkage Report in 2017, and also worked with the Habitat Agency and with us on the pond habitat restoration at our own Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve. So that was just some of the examples, and that brings me to my second to last slide, which is staff's recommendation that you adopt resolutions, the board adopt resolutions awarding the following contracts to CMG Landscape Architecture for connecting people to Coyote Valley and HT Harvey for Coyote Valley landscape linkage. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I'm excited. I want to see how it comes back to the board. I want to start to see all the input start to take bloom.
Yes.
Yeah. Are there any questions from the board?
Quick one, how was the response? Did we get a lot of interest in this RFP and
We got
process?
a lot of interest. We got 3 proposals for the connecting people team and 2 for the landscape linkage team. And, you know, each team, as you saw, has a lot of sub-consultants in it, so they kind of come together. But we were pleased with the responses that we got and the selection that we had to make.
It's going to be a better process now.
I'm very excited for moving this forward. Yes.
Question? No? No? All right, so we need one motion or to do 2 separate ones? We'll do 2, okay, we'll take for each one, but yeah. So then we need a motion to approve the contract for CMG, and then we'll do the second one on HT Harvey.
Madam Chair, move approval of the first item.
I second.
So we have a motion to award contract for connecting people to Coyote Valley project to CMG Landscape Architecture. For the, from Director Potter, a second by Director Alexander.
Through the chair. Do you want to take public comments?
Oh, yes. Do we have any public comment?
There none.
There none.
Okay, Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Potter.
Yes.
Director Dunn?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Director Sutherland.
Yes. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. All right, and then we need a second motion, which would be for HT Harvey.
I'll move.
Second.
And do we have any public comment?
There none.
Okay, so we have a motion to award contract for Coyote Valley Landscape Linkage Project to HT Harvey and Associates. We have a motion from Director Kennett and a second by Director Potter.
Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Potter,
Yes.
Director Sutherland.
Yes. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. All right. I look forward to this. All right, last but not least, we've been waiting. We have a presentation on the Victoria's wildfire prevention and response from Aaron Hebert.
Great. Good evening, Board of Directors. Aaron Hebert, Natural Resources Manager, joined by Derek Newman, Field Operations Manager. We'll keep our comments to the point here in the interest of time, but do want to provide the board with an update on our wildfire preparation and response. This is an informational item. We're going to touch a little bit about climate change in our area, talk about our regional sort of wildfire protection plan, and then sort of drill down into what we do at the Open Space Authority. So from the big to the regional to the very local work that we do. Just want to talk about climate change a little bit and what it means for our work. This comes from Daniel Swain, who's a researcher and a publisher. His work is a lot about getting out climate science to communities. And really what his research shows is that we're experiencing an, dramatic rise in extreme fire weather over time. And as you can see on the right, the projected risk going forward based on the latest available science is that it is only going to continue to get worse and at a pretty severe rate. One of his other findings is that we now experience what he dubs climactic whiplash. And what he means by that is our weather now is more trending towards extremely wet and extremely dry, sometimes in alternating periods. His example of this is Southern California. They had an extremely wet 2024, particularly April 2024, followed by an extremely dry December 2024 and extremely dry January 2025, which we got these catastrophic fires that broke out. So the pattern here is that the wet weather grew up a lot of vegetation, right? And then it dried down very rapidly due to extreme heat and drought following dry conditions. And then that's the sort of that's what sets up catastrophic fires, right? So we're in this very rapidly changing climate, and a climate that affects fire in our areas pretty dramatically. A good example here in Santa Clara County, we've just seen rising temperatures over the 30-year history of the authority. And as you can see quite dramatically in that middle figure, the number of fires per year in our county has just skyrocketed in the last, say 15 years, maybe since like 2010 or something like that, right? We had a very big drought, 2012 to 2017, and the number of fires has gone up pretty dramatically in that time. So when we think about our work, our agency's work, all public land managers' work, this is a new reality that just wasn't true when many of us grew up, say, in this Bay Area. So extreme weather is a core part of our work. Sometimes it's fire, sometimes it's flooding, but we have an important role in this, in that a lot of our lands protect urbanized areas from these extreme weather events, both because of how we manage our land and how we respond to these extreme events. So whether we like it or not, we are in the extreme weather business, I think it's fair to say, and how we go about this work is going to be more and more important as extreme weather just becomes more and more common. So to that end, Santa Clara County, CAL FIRE, all sorts of organizations, including us, have participated in this community wildfire protection plan. I'm going to show you some of the figures that have come out of this. This is what wildfire hazard looks like in the county. The red is the high fire areas. The blue is the very low risk areas. And what you'll see is that the sort of, mountain west part of the county is the more extreme fire area. Some of the deeper Diablos in the far east. And then, in Coyote Valley and a lot of the lands we own is kind of this intense mix of high fire and low fire, right, risk. So fire risk is spread kind of unevenly throughout the county, is I think another important takeaway from this slide. This is a somewhat simplified version of that into very high, high, and moderately high. As you can see, there's, pink or that very high in most of the kind of very rural areas outside of, and then it kind of grades into high and moderate, depending on where you are. Just zooming in even further, the way that fire is managed in California is generally by local, state, or federal responsibility areas. We don't have a lot of federal land in our area, so that's not a big consideration in our county, but we do have this kind of funny division of local and state. So in Coyote Valley, you can see some of these lands are actually part of the state responsibility area and others are part of the local responsibility area. So when we do have fire events, both state and local responders are generally at hand because of this kind of mishmash of local and state responsibility. Again, kind of keeping our frame on Coyote Valley just because it's where a lot of our lands are, and it's a good exemplar of the rest of the county. These sort of hexagons here show the number of residential or built structures and the wildfire intensity in those areas. So where you have kind of red or pink colors on this map, which you can see in sort of the Almaden or Twin Creeks area, you have that sort of confluence of high fire intensity due to usually the vegetation type, as well as a high number of structures. So real risk to life and property. And what you can see in this map is like the west side of Morgan Hill, for instance, has, a high intensity of structures, as you would expect, kind of in that interface, right? Where you have wildland conditions, you have fuels, and you have structures, right? That's where properties tend to get harmed. We have a term for this. It is the wildland urban interface. There's a big topic in the fire communities. In this map, you can see there's sort of the green zone, which is kind of like the wildland. You have the gray, which is of course the urbanized area. But then the purple represents this wildland urban interface. You'll often hear it called the WUI. And a lot of OSA lands are actually in the WUI. And that's not by accident. A lot of our work is actually to protect wildlands and to protect urban sprawl. So it's very common that we've acquired lands that kind of sit right in this position where they're, relatively accessible to urban populations, and they sort of keep sprawl from going elsewhere in the county. So WUI and WUI management are a big part of our work. And then just to conclude this section before I pass it off to Derek, this is the classic CAL FIRE figure about what people can do to protect their homes. In the immediate area around a home, it's almost like a no vegetation type zone. You get a little further out to the extended zone. You'll have larger trees, but still not like fine fuels. And then kind of as you get further out, more fuel can be around your property. This is what people should do and generally don't with respect to their homes, right? This is the kind of stuff we do around our structures, our buildings. We have buildings in some of our preserves that are used to manage them, but fuel clearance is the number one thing that people can do. Some of our role is sort of managing these special zones, and Derek will talk to you about that.
All right, Derek Newman, Field Operations Manager. So what we do for planning, and considering that we end up having, as Aaron had pointed out, many small fires, and then every now and again, much larger catastrophic fires out there. So the first thing that we do is we go through our staff and have an emergency preparation, what we do and train them on how to respond to emergencies, what they're looking for, when to call out an emergency. So they're kind of the first line of defense. And when we have red flag days, red flag warnings and watches, they are out on our preserves, usually at high points, looking out for smoke and other indicators that a fire is starting nearby. And in that point, they will start instituting emergency protocols for that. Along with that, we have started a preserve fuels management plan that Aaron's team is leading and will continue to lead with support from field staff. And then once we get that plan solidified and we seek out the projects in those, we will start to be operating from that plan on reducing fuels out on our preserves. Also, I'm part of the Santa Clara Fire Safe Council, and then through other partnerships too, our staff reach out to all of our local fire agencies. They invite them onto our properties. They do site tours on the properties to get them familiar with the roads. And they are a 100% expert on the preserves themselves. So having that institutional knowledge from our staff and being able to give that to our responding units is really critical in those moments when we do have a potential emergency situation on our properties. The other thing that we do a lot with is obviously grazing, and that's probably our most beneficial fuels reduction model that we have right now. They can cover a lot more ground than we could ever cover with mowers and weed whackers and just hand pulling. So utilizing cattle is a really big benefit for us. Unlike a lot of our northern neighbors, Mid-Penn and San Mateo County parks, we have a lot more grasslands than the other ones do. So we rely upon conservation grazing way more than our neighbors to our north do for those ones there. And then as Aaron had pointed out, that WUI, that wildland urban interface zone, we really try to focus on that one, on what our vegetation management practices are, roads, keeping roads open and being allowed for emergency access. And then also as escape routes for our neighbors that are in the wildland urban interface. So some of the things that we do right now that we're doing, we have that annual fuels management cycle, which is going out, and starts in June. We'll go out and we'll prep locations on our properties that are used for staging areas for emergency response vehicles. We will reduce fuels along roads and roadsides on dirt roads. So that allows vehicles to be able to park there safely and also be able to defend those spots if the fire were to come up.
What a lot of the fire resources do is clear areas where they're going to be staging vehicles or not. That way there is no direct flame near the vehicles as it comes up. Also, one of the biggest things, obviously, is invasive species removal. They can create monocultures and really dense, thick patches of fuels, which makes the fire more intense and more hot. And that can jump ladder fuels up into the canopies of the trees, and or again, that issue next to the roads where our emergency personnel are standing. Helicopter landing zone clearance we do. We talked about the red flag days and hot weather response on that one there, where our staff are out there. Their primary thing, once we do identify that there is a hazard in the area, will be to, one, obviously dial 911. After that, it is starting to evacuate any visitors that are on our preserves. So helping that, and then staging a person up at the staging area to make contact with the fire departments as they come up to be able to direct resources where we need them to be able to go, to be able to get to the people that are out there in need. The other thing that we do, with natural resources is that's a picture of David Mock right there going out and doing the annual grassland health monitoring. This is really ensuring that the cattle utilization of the properties are going what we want to. And we use, residual dry matter, which is how much fuel is left on the ground. So residual dry mass of the grasses. And based upon that, we will fine tune cattle grazing the following year to ensure that we're meeting targets. We don't want too much grass left and we don't want too little grass left. So either one of those are bad for different reasons. Obviously, the too much is we get into, again, higher fuels and more intense fires that are out there. So we have partnerships throughout the county. One is working with the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. A lot of that is done through the fire safe councils. We also have road associations that we work with and neighborhood associations. The really cool thing about this is we build partnerships with the neighbors out there. Casa Loma, Rancho Cañada del Oro is a prime example of that, where we end up having a community day where we get all the neighbors in the area, we come down, and then our staff take them through Rancho Cañada del Oro on an emergency evacuation route. Because where they are in the canyon, if there's a fire above and a fire down at the base near Uvis and Casa Loma, they're stuck in between. So getting through our property is the only access point that they would have to be able to get out. And as you know, with fire behavior, the flame fronts is only one part of the fire. Depending on the wind aspect, it could be shooting those fires miles in front with embers in the wind, which can easily seal off the canyon of Rancho Cañada del Oro. So using that and knowing that and then getting our neighbors and knowing them really starts to build that relationship, but it also builds trust with the Open Space Authority, which is sometimes hard to come by in the neighborhoods that are up in the hills. We also work with the Landscape Resiliency Project, this Mountain Stewardship Network. Those are all ones looking at large scale partnership level. What can we do for forest health? And what can we do to reduce or to help with fuels management out there? Our biggest partners, I think, are CAL FIRE, Santa Clara County Fire, and San Jose Fire, since they're the ones that are going to be coming out. It gets complicated for us simply because if one of those one maps, for those of you that were eagle-eyed, you would see that there was a cutout there where Rancho Cañada del Oro is, and it's not in the fire severity maps. That's because the city line actually goes all the way out into the hills. Sierra Vista is the same way. And this presents a challenge to us because the responding entities should be San Jose Fire. San Jose Fire getting out to the wildland out there, it takes a little bit more time than it does for CAL FIRE. So they end up partnering together, but we end up having the relationship with San Jose Fire because they do a lot of the mop up afterwards and monitoring the fire after it has already passed through the area. So building those relationships is really critical. And knowing where our jurisdictions are really critical, because that way we can assist the agencies responding as fast as we can with knowing the boundaries, because it does get technical for them out there. So in our emergency response, the open preserves, we basically mentioned facilitating visitor evacuation. We close the staging areas in preparation for the responding emergency units to use that. I think the biggest thing that we have for that is the resource for responding emergency units. I touched on that before. Back in 2017, when we had the Mount Chul fire, One of the biggest things there was we had detailed topographical maps of the area. Our staff were able to go out, interface with the responding units, the battalion chiefs, and actually take them out on tours of the property as the fire is coming down the mountain toward us, and showing them potential fuel breaks and access routes and the ways that they could get equipment up to these different locations, including dip points for the helicopters. So having that local knowledge is really beneficial when we can get out there and interface with the battalion chiefs really quickly. One common misconception is that we have CAL FIRE units here in county. Those are not always the ones that are going to be responding out, though. Because if we have the much larger fires, fire units get pulled from all over the state, including our county. So we might have units here that are stationed naturally in Bakersfield, or we might have some coming from Tahoma County. So we don't always have that local knowledge here. So having us being able to get it there and being able to provide that is critical in response and being able to build that. Same thing with the closed preserves. We're providing that technical support, but more importantly here, we're hoping to be able to get in touch with them soon enough that we can hopefully have them implement minimum impact suppression techniques. This allows for the protection of the resources. There's a lot of factors that go into fighting a fire, and it's really up to the responding incident commander and how they're going to and what resources they have. But the earlier we can get there and interface with them, the more that we can start to hopefully influence some of their techniques, which would maybe keep a dozer blade from going down on the property through really sensitive habitat and saying, hey, we have this road over here, go take a look at it. You might be able to use that as your fuel break and you could back burn off of that maybe, instead of hopping on it right away and putting down a blade to put it out. Again, they have the final call. We can only suggest. But sometimes that does come into play and they do actually follow our lead. That happened on Coyote Ridge once when we were able to get out there. I got there right as they were like telling the bulldozer where to go. I was able to stop them and they were able to just let it burn up to a road one time. So there is some success in that, not always. Afterwards, our staff are primarily sometimes dealt with basically mop-up protection, looking at fire lines, patrolling the old fire lines, making sure that there's nothing there. So we do provide resources to the responding agencies. Most times, honestly, this happens more in the San Jose fire jurisdiction than it does in the CAL FIRE. And I just attribute that to the fact that they are not wildland people as much as the CAL FIRE people are. So they're more likely to like say, hey, can you guys do this for us? And we can easily do that. It literally is just the fire's out. We're just going, making sure that there's no smoke anywhere interior on the property, and then giving a follow-up report to the units there. And it's also about infrastructure and assessments. So as Aaron mentioned before, looking at our buildings, ensuring that we're meeting up to codes with fire, but also providing even more defensible space around that, knowing that our staff might be the ones that are out there as well, if there were ever a case where a fire would come through the property. An example of what we're doing out there is Rancho Cañada del Oro in the PL 566. This is a fuel break. A designated fuel break from CAL FIRE. This one is designed to separate watersheds. So this one is separating Chesbro Uvis watershed, which is Monterey Bay's watershed, from the Guadalupe Creek watershed, and then also Los Gatos Creek watershed. The main goal of the fuel breaks really are to stop the fires from jumping into different watersheds. And, secondary is protecting, obviously, habitable structures out there as well. What we do on this, before it used to be CAL FIRE, they had a grant, they would come out every year and maintain the fuel breaks. That ended about a decade and a half ago. And it really fell upon the private landowners' responsibilities to maintain the fuel breaks. With our acquisitions, we actually have a significant portion of PL 566 within our jurisdiction now, and we've been slowly working on maintaining that fuel break. We use a combination of our own staff, renting equipment, and then also using conservation corps like the San Jose Conservation Corps to come out and do vegetation work along the PL 566 fuel breaks. So this is one of the critical ways that we help to provide that protection for the residents that live in our area underneath the fuel breaks, because we almost encircle Casa Loma now, and our responsibility here is really huge. And then working with the Fire Safe Council, we are working up on Summit Road and Loma Chiquita
being able to create that fuel break that's up there as well. So providing for emergency access and also evacuation routes up on the roads. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Aaron.
Great. Thank you, Derek. As I mentioned, unfortunately, fire is our future. It's a increasing part of just whatever your goal is, whether it's recreation or agriculture or, maintaining habitats. Preparing for and managing fire is a big part of our work. So I wanted to give you a sense as we hopefully receive additional funding in the future, looking to bring on staff to help plan, do community engagement around some of this work that we just described, and go after some of those fire-related grants, I think is an important step. And then, as Derek mentioned, we self-perform a lot of this work. We don't contract it out typically. So, getting specialized equipment and dedicating more field staff time and resources to this kind of work is just necessary, frankly, to maintain our status quo, right? As that risk goes up and as the extreme heat days increases, the level of work we have to do increases as well. So with that, we will take any questions that you have.
You. It's a very valuable presentation, and MidPen did one similar to the Clinton districts about a year ago, but they're more on, they're starting to control burns, so they're managing fire a little bit differently, but it was very interesting to watch that, and having property up in Calaveras County, I know about the 100-foot setback and the regulations up there, making sure you keep it clear and all the concerns about fires there, so I get it. But I'm wondering, this is such a good presentation that, and I know the city of San Jose, this has been in the news with them. Are you guys gonna take this out of the board context and maybe to some of the neighborhoods, in and around that are affected? I mean, I'm thinking, like Basque Ridge, Santa Teresa, the ones that are up against the foothills that have had concerns with fires. When I was up there, I can think of 2 fires within the last 5 years that were there.
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of that kind of community-based work is really done through fire safe councils. That's kind of what those organizations are about, is sort of like representing areas or neighborhoods. So I don't know if Derek wants to talk about how those groups could interact.
Yeah. So from the Fire Safe Council, we have an educational outreach that we do with the neighborhoods out there, and they are really primarily looking at the WUIs, the wildland urban interfaces. And they both send people out, actually door to door out there from these people, as well as post in the local newspapers that go up there and talk about community days where they come out. We just had the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council just had their first fire summit last year, which we had 500 attendees from the WUI areas that we had invited out there. We're hoping to make that larger this year as well. And that's really our focus in the Fire Safe Council, is having those communities out there. Part of the Fire Safe Council is actually having representatives from a lot of these wildland urban interface neighborhoods. They sit on both on our board as well as our advisory committee, and they do attend regularly. So that aspect of being able to get the information out there, understanding the grant systems and helping them get the assistance with grants, as well as providing chipping materials, chipping contracts and stuff that we get grants for in the Fire Safe Council, that really helps them out there. Our role in this Open Space Authority really is in support of them and giving them ideas of where those projects are located, or could be based upon our staff going out and seeing different areas that look overgrown or could use vegetation treatments, and then passing that information on to the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council or the Santa Cruz Fire Safe Council for that matter too.
There's a proposed change in South County. How's that affect us?
Speaking of starting fires.
Let me be political on that one. It's a change, and it's a challenge right now to understand the agencies that is coming into this. They're not as well versed as CAL FIRE was, especially in the wildland urban interface areas.
Are you aware of what I'm asking?
This is the Santa Clara County that is taking over for CAL FIRE in Morgan Hill.
This is coming to LAFCO.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the merger, yes.
So, I mean,
I'm getting correspondence on that, yes.
the personnel know how to fight fire. I'm not questioning that at all. We are not getting people that have no idea how to fight fire or anything like that. But what it is like learning the responsibility areas, learning where they need to go, all the things that our local CAL FIRE really had, and the deep knowledge of it. Even though they change personnel every year, and there's a new captain every couple of years, there's new engineers and new firefighters every couple of years, there's still that continuity. And now we're getting all new crews that are going to be coming out there. So for our staff this coming year, it really is about building more different relationships and getting them maps and really understanding what their capabilities are. I have no doubt they can fight fire, but it's just they don't know who we are, and we don't have that relationship. And a lot of times they, blow us off in the very beginning until they understand what our capabilities are.
And that leaves the question, since this item is coming up in the next LAFCO meeting, is OSA weighing in? Or are you thinking about weighing in?
Chair, I mean, I might ask Derek what your sense is, but we've been following that, observing it, but I didn't know that if we really had a dog in that fight. But it sounds like, from the sounds of it, it's more relationship building. Could you explain a little bit more why, from what you know, why would the county be taking over for CAL FIRE in this one area?
Cost. It was
Cost
really,
to the state?
It was cost to the counties that were like paying for the CAL FIRE's services. They felt that they could do it cheaper. And it goes more than that, but it really goes into unions and pay and a bunch of different things that it gets very political very quick. But the real answer is cost.
I think that the input that you're giving should be shared more broadly within just one LAFCO commissioner.
No, I mean, some of this we could look at CV Camp and how we could like tie this into some presentations on something too, because that's where our largest wildland urban interface is really going to be.
Through the chair, maybe, are you suggesting or recommending that maybe OSA staff give some remarks at the LAFCO meeting about what our observations are?
I think your observations are very worthwhile, that it, would be beneficial just to, enter into the record, some of the strategic concerns and building up the training capacity, the education and the relationship building.
When was the meeting?
Meeting is the 3rd
of April.
2nd, whatever coming up.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know if the agenda's been posted.
Want to both tag team it?
Yeah, April 2nd.
Figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
All right.
Question. The Water District is working closely with some of the Morgan Hill-based fire safe councils on the impacts of the Lexington Reservoir, or not Lexington, the Anderson Dam project. And well, not about the Anderson, but the impacts of construction in that area to them. And they're having some very fruitful discussions with them. Are we a part of those at all, or do we want to be a part of those at all from an open space perspective?
I don't think we've been a part of those so far.
Okay. 1,100 houses, and there's one road in, one road out. The county approved it back in the day, and now it's part of Morgan Hill. So neighbors are freaked out that the reservoir is going to be drained for 10 years. And, fires could just run right across the empty canyon there and hit them. So they want to look at access. Like the way what struck me was you talk about, we do a practice drive with Casa Loma through our preserve. And so they're talking about how do we do that through Rosendon Park? And then where would they come out? Right now it's go through Rosendon Park and then just kind of cross country over some guy's farm to get to a road and downhill, and there's 1,100 people. So not sure that's the best strategy, but I know there's a bunch of meetings coming up involving that, and it's very much affected by the CAL FIRE, County Fire dynamic in Morgan Hill. So there's a lot of irons in that fire there. So we want to probably be strategic in how we approach who Morgan Hill chooses to be their fire protectors. But thank you. Very, very good.
Thank you, Director Kenneth, for bringing that up.
Issue on several levels for us. I live in my home is in that zone. And so we've become used to CAL FIRE and it's easy to work with. There was a history before CAL FIRE took over with the county. Maybe they've changed their ways, but it hasn't always been friendly.
Any other comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Very timely presentation. Okay.
Madam Chair.
After the information item.
Members.
There you go. Okay. No worries. That's okay. Rich, any public comment? Comments for you? On to bed. All right, committee meeting summaries. I had to go back and. Because usually we have ABC right before, now we have to go back and remember that ABC meeting we had. So, yes, and then Director Alexander can correct me, but we reviewed the at-large application process for the CAC members, which was a very lively discussion. So we actually benefited from having a separate ABC meeting from the board meeting, so we could have a little bit longer discussions. So I think it was very fruitful. You want to weigh in on? No. Come back, sure does too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lively and productive.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of good brainstorming. Yes. Lee, did you want to add anything or not?
No, I think you covered it, and then I believe the committee asked us to bring the material back in the future for consideration. So yeah, we'll come back probably in another couple of meetings or so. Date to be date.
Yeah, we were looking at how other cities did their, their CACs, and it was very interesting. Yeah. Okay, so the next is the Citizen Advisory Committee. Is there an update? No, attended on my behalf. Okay.
And actually, I can help you there, Madam Chair. Director Gill was not feeling well and was not able to attend. So just running through the agenda, the committee heard about the county agricultural mitigation plan. It's getting very hard to get multiple syllables out of my mouth at this hour from Erin Hebert. Ano Regalado did the same presentation as she did for the board with the CAC, asking about agricultural and grazing tours. A lot of great interest. Jackie Latham presented the Urban Grant Program update for 2025. And then Andrea presented the item on exploration of a funding measure. And then I presented a draft CAC work plan for the upcoming fiscal year. I have to say it was a very rousing meeting, a lot of energy, very full agenda. It was a long meeting and just a lot of great conversation. Yeah, I'm sorry that you missed it. There'll be more. We'll be bringing some of this back in May. So.
Good. That's a full agenda.
Yeah.
A lot to cover.
Can I just add to that, our newest CAC members were so active in the meeting, and they asked great questions, great recommendations. So yeah,
more than one.
Two. Yeah.
Right. Beth attended her very first meeting, right? And then Lisana, still very new, as she's only her second meeting, I think. So
Yeah.
gotcha.
Good. Okay. Right, general manager report.
Madam Chair, just a couple of items. Our AGM, Mark Landgraf, and our Conservation and Strategic Partnerships Manager, Megan Drager, have been in Washington, D.C. Since Monday, having meetings with our federal representatives on both our current and hopefully future funding opportunities for OSA projects. They were flying back tonight, so Mark couldn't be here, but sends his best. But I think they had good meetings there. Behind me on the wall, which you can check out as you walk out tonight, is a blow up of a $5 million check that we got from the state of California. Because this morning, the Open Space Authority acquired 141 acres of land in mid-Coyote Valley from the Peninsula Open Space Trust. And the transfer was made possible with a generous $5 million grant from the Wildlife Conservation Board. And if you look closely on there, you'll see the original source of the funding is the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund at the state of California. Under public ownership, the authority will be providing long-term stewardship for these lands as we complete and implement our Coyote Valley Conservation Areas Master Plan in the coming years. Secondly, I think your board is aware, we are conducting a public opinion survey late March to early April. And EMC Research will be joining staff at your April 24th board meeting to report out on the results and for your board to give staff further direction on exploring the potential June 2026 funding measure. As Lee just mentioned, we gave a report similarly to the one we gave you in February to the CAC, got a lot of great inputs. Some really good suggestions that the expenditure plan, which obviously a lot of the voters don't usually read, it's in the ballot book itself, right? But just encouraging us to communicate as simply as possible about what open space and natural areas and agriculture are, the benefits to the public. So we're working on that. We're beginning to reach out to various sectors in the county. We're working on additional ways to conduct education through collateral information pieces. We have a new one that's in front of you tonight, courtesy of our very talented comms communications department. A lot more social media, FAQs coming on our website, and then just want to ask the board as well as the CAC to continue to help connect us to community organizations and key stakeholders that you are aware of that we'll want to be talking to. And then lastly, next Friday, April 4th, the OSA is co-hosting a workshop with the California Nature Conservancy and consultants called ERG. We're pulling together all the major Santa Clara County land conservation agencies and organizations to discuss the potential to scale investment and improve coordination on nature-based solutions to climate change. The Nature Conservancy is surveying 3 different counties in California, Mariposa, Santa Clara, and LA, to better understand how county-level conservation and restoration actions can be better supported. So once these are all done, the recommendations will be shared with state leaders, and the goal is to improve and increase dedicated investment in nature as a solution to climate change, which is one of the ways the state has identified it will achieve its net zero goals by 2045.
Just report out on a few things in the interest of time. I did want to let the board know that there have been some updates to the county's proposed agricultural mitigation policy. As you may recall, I think I was before this board in October or something like that of last year, and saying they were working on this. It was part of their rural housing zoning update, but they didn't have a lot of meat on the bones. That is still true a little bit. It is much delayed from the original schedule, but we do know that they will be taking some sort of skeleton proposal to their Hewlett Committee, their Housing, Land Use, or Energy and Transportation Committee on April 17th. To that effect, we've prepared a more detailed sort of technical comment letter for their staff who we're engaging with, and then may as appropriate comment and or attend that Hewlett meeting on April 17th. So we are at the board's direction staying very engaged in this item. and hoping to influence in the best way we can. Our major contribution is bringing best practices from other county ag mitigation policies. There are a couple dozen around the state that are, some are quite old and some are quite new. And they have their good and their bad and their ugly, and we're trying to share that information with county staff. The other thing I'll note is that we've recently retained a temporary GIS technician in order to create a badger habitat connectivity model. This is a project of the Santa Cruz Mountain Stewardship Network, their wildlife working group, which I'm a part of, with the goal of really modeling badger connectivity across Santa Clara County. MidPen, my old organization, had done some of this modeling in their region, and then it kind of abuts us and doesn't quite cover our area. So our GIS technician, our temporary GIS technician, will take that work and extend it throughout our county, so we know a little bit more about grasslands and about badgers in our area.
That it? Okay. Legal counsel.
No report, Madam Chair.
All right. Board member reports. We'll start over here, Director
No
Potter. Director Alexander. No report. I'll be really proud. We had special districts and I got elected chair. Nobody else wanted it, no. And the vice president is Brandon Kwan and the treasurer is Jim Bell. That's it. And LAFCO appointments are coming up, I think, next month, April. Yeah, I have to reapply for LAFCO.
Yeah.
We have a special meeting on that. And that's it. And Director Sutherland has something she wants to share with you.
Thank you, Director Chapman. I'm so sorry I was in late this evening, but I was at Assembly Member Ash Kalra did his Women's History Month celebration, and I was one of the people who he celebrated, and it is for leadership and community. And he called out some of the things I've been involved with throughout the years. This was one of them, and it was a great honor and just a lovely, lovely event.
Congratulations. Nada, okay. All right. With that. Yes, I know, really. All right. That, we're adjourned.